Okay. What's up, Mike? Welcome to day one of a 5-day. Let's go into depth on what mentorship is for the community that we're building and where it comes from and what applications of it that we can develop further with our prospects. As far as prospects being those people that want to come to work with us in our various respective communities. I'm building the Academy of Sorcery around this particular model, and I believe you're going to be using this for Sprad Paranormal to be
Yes.
able to develop your communities further for your Facebook, for your YouTube, and then we can intermesh and we can everybody can work together. So day one is talking about trust, building trust. What is it that we can do that we can demonstrate our ability to lead with our information? How do we establish trust? How did I establish trust with you in your experiences?
Let's see. Well, it's kind of like I was thrown in front of you by the gods. So really, it was like the first lesson where I got proof that my offering was accepted was trust enough. I mean, when the gods show you that your offering's been accepted because of the magical practice you just did, like you need no more proof. You need no more proof.
Right. And that's the thing, right?
Right.
It's not about the stuff that I do directly on my own, like with clients and shit like that, but it's the ability to get you doing the things that allows you to experience that shit firsthand, right?
Right. Like the binding spell that I did, I put it out in the Brotherhood, and I filmed me doing the binding spell. The only thing I did was cut the name out of what I was binding. And I taped it. I sat down here, me and the wife had a conversation while I taped the candles, because the spell would be done when the candles burn out. And it was cool because, I'm sitting there and I've got the sigil and tarot cards and the candles are burning next to the offerings. And sitting there talking to the cat, and next thing you know, something runs across the screen. Now I'm on a little phone. Like, where I'm on a little phone. Okay, I'm recording on a little phone, and I'm sitting here like I can see something run real quick across the screen. And I'm looking, I'm like, my cat's sitting right here with her tail tucked. She's purring, talking to daddy. You know what I mean? Like, my cat's into magical stuff. She loves, like, I'm telling you, I have Bastet as my cat, the Egyptian god. I kid you not. But, I'm sitting here and I'm taping it and it ran across the screen. I said, holy shit, something just ran across the screen. And I said it on camera. I'm like, okay, well, I'll have to review. And as soon as I reviewed it, it was like, yes, it was like the gods were saying, your offering's been accepted. That was proof enough. I was just like, wow, that's, not, I did it, hoping that I would get something, and I did, I mean, it's enough for the community to be like, dude, all right. You know what I mean? Like, there's something here. You know what I mean? Even though it's just a little white thing that runs across the screen, when you freeze it, it looks like a little runner. But yeah, it was just too wild, man. It was like, that was enough proof. Like, it couldn't have been any better. Like,
And that's what makes this stuff so exciting, and to be able to do it the right kind of way. And one of the most interesting things is that as magicians and occultists, we have a responsibility to affect the world around us, for, in my view, positive change. And positive change can be based on perspective of the client, based on the thing that we are called to do by the situation at hand. So that way it resolves itself in a way that benefits as many people as possible. And so I view a quad win sort of situation where it benefits the environment, it benefits the client, it benefits the recipients from the client's life, benefits myself, and it teaches to the method, and it stays true, and it's this congruent through line of unity, right? And we learn in all the different primary religions on the planet that there is this thing called unity, and it is this connective fiber that links all humans, all animals, all trees, everything in a collective, right?
exactly.
And my background comes through being taught about this concept of a singular collective, right? It is a singular consciousness that we are able to interact with on purpose, and through various methods and work like that, such as charging silver and using silver as a base for a lot of the work that we do. at least in the order that I was trained in, as a way to enhance the psychic ability, to be able to see the things remotely, to be able to experience these things remotely, and to do the kind of work that you've been able to experience, right?
Right.
And that is hard to translate unless there's other people that are willing to speak up about it. And so this is one of those things where when you're doing mentorship, when it comes to spiritual technique, when it comes to teaching these kinds of things, there needs to be an element of visceral expression, right? It's like, what kind of visceral expression are you going to trust more? Somebody telling you or something you experience? And this is what's a really hard thing to translate when it comes to teaching the occult, is they have to be willing to do. There has to be a trust to do this stuff, right? Listen to what I'm saying, do the stuff that I'm recommending, try not to deviate too much from it, because if you deviate too much from it, it's no longer the experience that I can back with my own trust in this method, right? So it's not that I'm telling you to do something specifically because this is the only way to do it. I'm telling you to do something in a very specific way because this is the way that I've found that works.
Right, and that's what I did. I set everything up the way you explained it to me. The only thing I did was change a few words for the incantation.
Which is perfect, because you had to get it separated into that moment anyway.
Right. Well, I had to deal with that situation. But yeah, I made sure I directed it at that situation. But everything was set the way you explained it to me. And like I said, just, it was great. I've seen it with my own eyes.
That's so cool. Now I got a question for you. You've done spells before, and you were trying to do something similar, but it didn't have the same result, right?
Right.
Can you talk to the differences about what you did on your own, trying to use your intuition to determine what was up, versus the methodology of going through like the progression of doing it the right way, or at least a methodical way, so that everything was taken care of?
When I did it the first time, there was just a different atmosphere. Like you would have to take a course in my hermeneutics to understand what I'm saying, but there was a different energy, like the aura, the vibration and frequency in the room was just totally different than normal. You know what I mean? When I did it before, it was just like every day. Like there was not even a win. When I did it your way, the atmosphere changed. There was like this energy. There's no other way to explain it. Like the candles were shooting to the fucking roof. I mean, like they were freaking high. Like I've never seen candles burn that high. Like they were. Even the wife said, "Them things are burning strong." That's good intention. And like I said, I was putting the intent. You know what I mean? Like, and I could see the candles, knowing what I know. You know what I mean? Being a hermeneutics teacher, as I'm putting my intent through it, I'm watching these candles on the screen. I'm just like, like I could literally see as I'm doing it, the intent grow, and then you know what I mean, like the wave of the candle, like on the intent that I was putting out. The first time I did it, there was none of that. Like there was just a different atmosphere.
That's so fascinating.
All around.
See, and that's what I love about creating temple space or creating spell environments, because it creates the singularity, so that as you go through and you demonstrate what it is you're doing, you create a singularity. You create something so intense and so perfectly described that there is nothing else other than to cause the manifestation.
Right.
And so therefore the manifestation is forced to exist. And it does, and it comes together, and everything works out as a single unified creation. And that's what's so cool about it, is because in mentorship, it's like, if you're able to have that from just a few simple changes of your methodology, it's like, what else can we get you to do? So that way you've got this, you can demonstrate to others and they can trust your methods, right? It's like, how do we carry this through? So now it's no longer about my methodology being the thing that sets you in for success, but it's the fact that you can apply this and you can make this and develop this in your way to get other people learning from you. Because you said you're a hermeneutics teacher. So how are you going to apply that concept of tangible proofs to your intangible concepts? Like, what would you use as a descriptor for that?
And that's what I was saying. I was giving a little hint to that. Being a hermeneutics teacher and understanding the natural law, as I was sitting here and watching the candles, and my wife would be explaining to me what, the different stages of the candles meant and this and that. And as she's explaining them to me, she's like, when they flicker like that, they're battling through obstacles, So when she told me that, I was like, all right, more intent, So I put more, and you could see when I put more intent, it would be like, and then just straight again. Like it fucking blasted through whatever was there, and it was fucking straight again. Like you can see in the video, as she's explaining them to me, you can watch the candles and like you can just, I think you can feel because I remember the intent. Like, I mean, it was just an awesome experience. Like, they would flicker and it was like, all right, more intent. You know what I mean? Like I could feel the energy that I was putting out. I think it'd be better the next time because now I know how to bring energy in, open the gates and bring it in. You know what I mean? I won't be so dead tired and sleep for 18 hours.
You still might, because it takes a while to condition your body for the gate magic. That stuff is brutal when you don't have certain things set in place.
And again, I got to tell people, make sure that, make sure you don't waste all your energy to where it totally drains you and you can't do shit. You know what I mean? Especially those that do practice in the arts. You don't want to leave yourself vulnerable if you've got, say, enemies. You know what I mean? So always make sure you've either got a backup reservoir or you keep some energy to keep a warding spell or something on.
Oh, absolutely. That's part of it.
Totally draining yourself like that is not very good.
Yeah, it's a fascinating expression of like what actually becomes viable for, okay, you had this one experience conjuring spirits for binding spell. That opens up the possibility for all sorts of new kinds of magic that we can create. And you were just using a few simple ingredients, a couple of herbs, a candle, a puppet. You didn't even use the puppet for that one, did you?
No, I didn't. Nope.
So like that was just some tarot cards. But the neat
Herbs,
thing about
alcohol, and tarot cards.
Yeah. And the thing about it is with the tarot cards, they're not just a passive divination tool. It's not just, oh, these are pretty pictures on a piece of paper. It's like these are ancestral images.
Right.
Under the right understanding in the 14th century is like, this is what was so incredible about the application of cartomancy, but as a necromantic tool, because every card represents a person in history or a behavior of a person in history. So they were trying to translate that image into something that could be pocket sized, And so going through, at least for the mentorship of occult stuff, like there's training for 122 different sections of magic. And I don't even think that the cards are on that in those 122 sections. That was just 7 levels of 13 sections per level. So that way there's a rough, conversation that we can have to go into.
And the cards are really elementary level. I mean, I used to think they were hard and like dreaded even thinking about you. But once you understand hermeneutics, once you understand that time, like you understand the pictures, it's all about understanding the pictures and where they're placed in the astrological positions. Like, I can't explain it any more in depth without getting too in depth where I lose you. You know what I mean? Like certain positions that they're placed opens up certain portals due to the certain time that you place them. According to what sigil you have, like you can get so deep into it, which is what I did. I just didn't have the golem and all the other stuff, like certain sigils written outside of the main sigil.
Oh, totally. And that's the basic principle of the feng shui, right? Is like the Kinmen Dujia is the fate scroll. It's what we think of in Western metaphysics. The Kinmen Dujia puts it to shame.
Oh, I bet.
It is the Chinese liturgical astrology. It's the reading of fate for a situation. You can do it for situations, you can do it for people, you can do it for locations. Feng Shui is the understanding of that flow of fate and the energy of things through nature. And so all we're doing as ritual magicians or as spellcasters or as creating a little work for ritual to create a singularity, all we're doing is controlling the natural environmental flow of fate, putting it into a singularity and then releasing it. We're creating a knot, and then we're sending the knot into creation. If we're talking about a tapestry, right? Like we take on the role of the Norns, and we're weaving fate together when we create the spell. And so being able to do that in a clear and concise way that makes it seem like, oh my God, this is something that's like literal divinity acting in front of us, while at the same time, these are the principles that our ancestors knew. And these are the principles that, we're responsible for carrying forward as, lack of a better term, mystics and holy men, is because what we get up to is the same kind of things that unfortunately the skeptics of faith have the luxury of believing, right? They believe their viewpoints. We know ours. There is a difference between having faith and having full fucking immersive experience.
Well, a lot of it also is the Catholic Church with their Bible doctrine. They sit out there and, witchery is bad, but yet they sit there and praise Lucifer in masses. Like, a lot, they don't want you doing what they do. They don't want you with that knowledge. And, that's why I try to tell people it's all about control. They know it. They do it. They practice it. And your Masons know it. They do it. They practice. You know what I mean? Like,
and so here's the thing is like, all right, now how do we get the trust? Again, today's all about trust. How do we build trust that what we're doing isn't evil? How do we build that into what we do, how we teach, how we describe the things that we're doing?
Because what we're doing is teaching nature, natural things, chemistry, physics. It's all there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not anything to be afraid of. What, you tell me you're afraid of biochemistry? You afraid of physics? You afraid of numerology? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's all basic science, like
exactly
natural law. It's again hermeneutics. Once it's simple. I mean, you're only scared of it because they told you to be afraid of it. You were taught at a young age to be afraid of it. And I can prove this theory, because if you go and you look at any pagan household and their children are watching Harry Potter. Their children are watching things that have to do with nature. They're watching things that have to do with physics and biochemistry, and they're learning the scientific part of things. Or if you look at a lot of households today, they're not allowed to watch horror movies. They're not allowed to play video games. They're not, what I mean? They're under strict rules.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing, is being subjected to stricture that, okay, so what happens when that strict rules don't serve you? Like, there are situations that you'll find in life that normal rules go out the window. Yeah. And if you don't have the foundation, if you don't have access to that foundation, if we didn't do our job and put our work out in front of the public to say, hey, look, this is where you can learn information safely. This is where you can actually get results within one spell experience. It's not even the completion of the spell. It's the experience of casting it that created that trust in this methodology, right?
Right.
And it's that firsthand experience. Is like, if you can get this firsthand experience teaching a concept of intangible manifestation, what happens when you teach tangible manifestation, right? And so,
well, that's an advanced course,
right? And yeah, that's what will be at the end of the 122 weeks. Like,
right.
Let's be real. Like, you'll be ready for that in a year, maybe a year and a half. But
yeah,
it's for those of you that are finding this video and you don't understand like some of the experiences that are possible. If you have ever read the Key of Solomon, in it talks about the brass vessel, anchoring a spirit to an object in order to be able to get it to serve. Well, I've done this for clients. Yep, there you go. And the spirit that I summoned for my client was Zapar. And my client has had it for 2 years. And he's actually released it from the vessel, and it still shows up and serves with him. Not for him, with him.
Yeah.
One of the most important things that you can understand when it comes to this kind of tangible interaction with the unseen world is that we work in tandem with it. You're going to invite that energy into your life, then you're going to have to balance your life with that energy, and it becomes interwoven. It's not that it's going to serve you like a slave to its master. It's more like, what was it that Guy said about those things? How did he describe it to you?
Now you
Like
make me think.
wasn't it like a dinosaur? Something with a dinosaur and a toddler.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. I don't remember offhand. I don't want to say it wrong, but yeah, I remember something about a dinosaur and a toddler.
Yeah. So when you got a chance to speak with him, you actually had a chance to speak one-to-one with a guy that had a spirit from the brass vessel conjured up, same kind of methodology as Solomon. What was your take on him having that conversation with him?
I was eager to learn more. I love King Solomon. I love his writings. I love his magical practices. Like, I want to be. I was always told to set my expectations high. So, damn it, I want to be higher than King Solomon. You know what I mean? If we're going to get real about things, yeah, I know it'll never happen, but just the chance to study his writings and do his magic and just understand the depth of communication that he had. I mean, come on, guys. He controlled 300 demons to build this god's first temple. Like, how epic is that? That's epic. So can you imagine going to a graveyard? You got a problem, you're feeling down, you want to commit suicide or something, you want to do something real dark, and you open up a portal with a pentagram, and you get a spirit. There's a friend to talk to. There's something to talk to. There's something that's going to be with you, not to hurt you, but you're like your guardian. You know what I mean? Like these are things that kids run into every day, all around the world. Why? Because parents today are so wrapped up in their life, and they got to go to work, and they got to do this, and they got to do that, and the children are left at home, usually sitting in front of a TV. Most of them children are going to get into the dark arts. They're going to get into things that fascinate them. If they're a child like I was, you run across a goat killing ritual in the middle of the night, like 1 o'clock in the morning in the woods, because you're sneaking home from your friend's house, knowing what your parents know. You get introduced to the cult world real quick. You know what I mean? Like, but it wasn't scary. It was fascinating. Like, I wasn't scared when, I tripped over that stick and they found me. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, hey,
Can you talk to that
this is cool.
experience?
Huh?
Can you talk a little bit more about your
Yeah. All right. So I was only like 13, like maybe 14. About 14. I'd say I was about 14 because I was going roller skating and stuff with people. So yeah, I was about 14. And I lived in a trailer park that was surrounded by woods. And at that time, I was always grounded, so I was never allowed out. I was a bad boy. But at that time, I would sneak out my window and run along the house, run along the trailer because we lived in a trailer park. Yes, I'm a trailer park boy.
So
I
is
would run
most of the
across
world right now.
Right, you run across the bottom of the trailer into the woods, and when you get into the woods, you probably walk about 500 feet, and there's this little trail. This little trail would go all the way down to the bottom of the trailer park and wrap around, and there would be like this park down at the bottom with the water treatment facility. And above the water treatment facility, if you went far enough, was what they considered C block. And this was where my friend lived, so I would go all the way down and around. Well, it was like midnight, 1 o'clock. We were getting drunk, and we were taking tables from the picnic area and putting them in the road for the cop because we used to have a lot of fun back when you could do this stuff. Like, but anyway, I was
the
on my
reason why
way.
those laws exist, Mike. I blame you for those.
Because of kids like me. But anyway, I went through the woods, and at this time, I only had like a little light, like miner's lights. It was just a little light. And I'm walking up, and I'm going through the woods, and I see these little flames, and I hear people, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So I shut the light off, and I walk up the trail a little bit, and I'm looking, and I'm hiding behind this big ass rock. And I couldn't quite see I could see people gathered around. They were in these robes, there's a big fire, but I couldn't see what they had hanging. Like there was something hanging, and I couldn't see it. So I wanted a better look. Well, so I took a little step to the left, and I stepped on a stick. I ended up spraining my ankle. But when I took a look, they had a goat hanging upside. They were doing a sacrifice to what, to who, I don't know. I was too young at the time. I just noticed that when I stepped on that stick, they turned around. They seen me. And instead of getting paranoid or anything like that, they welcomed me in. They were like, "Hey, come on in. Let us explain to you what you were doing. We're sacrificing this lamb for peace, for nourishment of the land. The land. It was a goat or whatever, but they were sacrificing it." I was like, "Cool, okay, yeah." And the one guy there lived in the trailer park. He's like, "I see you a lot with Chris." I'm like, "Oh yeah, Chris." He was one of my older friends. He was like 19, 20. I was like, "Yeah, I know Chris." He's like, "Well, why don't you stop over with Chris one of these days and we'll have a talk. But right now, I guess you should be going." And I was like, "Okay." So that intrigued me. And then I started to stop over with Chris and I started to learn black magic. And I was being taught. I was actually writing a book of my own, a book of shadows, of experiences, to where I raised Cerberus like in front of my friend, scared the shit out of me. Fucking ran home. I didn't see him for a while. But yeah, I did these things and I had a whole black book. It got to the point where my aunt wouldn't let me in her house, even when I met my wife, because I was too powerful. She's like, "I don't want him here. Like, I could destroy her like that if I wanted to." She wouldn't let me in her house. She was too scared. But as I got up and thought maybe it was evil because of the Christianity kind of shit, I gave the book to my niece, and I don't know what she ever did with the book, but it was a fucking great book. But yeah, that's how I got introduced to the dark arts at a very young age.
And that's beautiful. I mean, I got started into witchcraft when I was about 13, 14 also. And I was up in the mountains of Colorado the year after Columbine. And there was some of the kids from summer camp that were up there with me, and they were pagans. And they had lost friends in Columbine, and they were talking to me about nature spirits and things like that, and the trees and the woods and stuff like that. And we were up in some of the most sacred mountains up in Colorado. Like, we climbed to the, and out in the woods, man, for weeks on end. It was a 2-month summer camp, and we were hiking for days on end for most of that time. Like, I think we spent maybe a week total sitting at the camp.
Oh wow.
And other than that, it was on the trails.
Colorado is beautiful, though. I can understand why.
Oh yeah. And then when I got to Northern California, it's about 6 months into my freshman year, and I'm like, I just can't shake this feeling. Like, this is something that I have to get into. And so I'm talking to this gal in my fucking PE class, and I'm like, "So what's your take on witchcraft?" And she says, "Oh, I'm a witch." What? You're like 13. How are you a witch? And she's the one that taught me basic energy techniques. She taught me how to do the grounding of the chi, the grounding of the earth, how to channel the elements better so that I wouldn't pass the fuck out. So that's where I got my first experiences, was in high school. And this was 2000. And so, or 99, 2000. This was before the Harry Potter thing came out. And before it had gotten as big as it was. And it's really fun because now I'm building out the course for the Grey School of Wizardry, which is basically like Hogwarts for real. And It starts when kids are 13, 14. So the ages that you and I got into this stuff with, if they want to get into it, they can go to the Grey School and they can learn from real magicians doing this stuff in safe ways. So you don't have to accidentally stumble upon animal sacrifice in the woods. You can learn that those are religious traditions. You can learn what the foundations of those religious traditions are. You can learn what people are practicing these kinds of things for and what type of reverence should be applied to those things. So it's no longer like the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, where it's like, "Oh my God, people are worshiping the devil by killing a..." No, it's feeding the earth, for fuck's sake.
That's when it was. It was. I had my experience. It was either 89 or 90. I was 14. See, 76, 86, 7, 88, 89. It was 89. It's back in 89 when I had this experience. So, God, I'm old. I know.
That old.
But you know what? I got a lot of wisdom. The gods have allowed me to be old for a reason, to share that wisdom with you guys.
They're keeping you around for a while, Mike. I don't think you're going to get off the hook.
They love me. They love me.
you know, and this is one of those
Undeserved
things.
love. That's what it is.
Absolutely. And this is one of those things where here's a practical exercise for people that are watching this, and even for you, Mike. And this is what I try to do daily and keep records. Keeping records of your spells, keeping records of your ideas are what allows you to give yourself trust in your own methods. And so by being able to have a book of working, right? It's like I have 4 different books that I use. There's a dream book, which I'm reluctant to put anything down in because that shit is weird and bizarre and I can't really place it, which I need to do better with. There is the Book of Shadows, which is the experiences and stuff that I've had firsthand when it comes to the interactions of my spells. There's the Book of Correspondences and Rituals and the methods of spellcraft, right? And then there's the Book of Power. Right. So the spell book itself is separate from the Book of Power, whereas the Book of Power is a completed everything is a spell that's already active on every page. The Book of Methodology, right? Like these here full of, you know, years of professional spellcraft, right? It's like got all the little what I go through most. It's like color coded for this shit. But you know, it's as you go through and you refine your practice and you go into what's going to give you the trust of your method, right? This is what will give you the trust of your method is if you go through and you separate out 4 separate notebooks. I have a stack of composition books. Like those don't make it on camera because I beat them to fuck. I carried them around with me to work. On my lunch break, I would write down the spells that I was thinking about in the morning for breakfast. Like, dude, like that, this book here is a composition of the best methods that I pulled out of the books of studies. Like my notebooks were the compression of all of those materials and stuff that I was working on in order to be able to refine my practice to the point where I can actually explain it and not sound like a lunatic.
I'm gonna have to check back this recording because I just seen something like it was a pretty big orb fall down right around where your light was when you were talking about that. Because I think it was around. Let's see, we're at an hour and 44. We're at an hour and 48 minutes, so it would have been around an hour and 44 minutes. I'm sitting here listening to you, and right off of the left of you, this thing just comes right down and disappears. Like, well, that was cool.
Shit happens, man. Shit happens all over the.
Cool.
It's a witch's house. Like what else can I say? Like
Yeah.
friends are coming to visit, you know,
Yep.
and so it's the record of these things is there's a book that I don't bring out very often, right? It's the Codex Arcanum Volume 1.
Okay, I have that on PDF.
800 pages of crazy, right? This is a book that is all method. It is all the combination of the Book of Shadows and the method. For the Grimoire of Arts project, I separated out the shadows part. I separated out all of my personal experiences, all of my gnosis, all of my unverifiable stuff that can't be proven by somebody else. So I pulled it all out of there. So, you know, you want to see what an early magician looks like when they're full fucking crazy. I wrote this book 3 days to write 800 pages. I would just bam on the computer and it was done. Like it's an unedited, this is raw, took 3 days. That took 10 years.
Awesome book, guys, and as you can tell, it's used. It's been used since, yeah.
I call it Big Red, but then I got the Liber Nos by Carl Jung, and that Big Red is bigger than my Big Red, so I feel like I can't call mine Big Red no more. So yes, it's the red book. It's the I can't even call it the red book because it's not red, like full red no more.
Black. It's black and red.
The black and red book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
$40, guys, on Amazon.
This sucker.
I trust you get it.
You know, we were talking about it in a different video. And so for the people that are looking to get the methods and get these kinds of things under their belt, even with the Grimoire of Arts project, it's a collection of method. It's a collection of the stuff that I did for 10 years. I stripped it down to its bare bones mechanics. The stuff that I wouldn't think other people wouldn't be able to work, I took out. The stuff that I was able to test with others, that's what I was able to put in there. And that's what helped make that book a bestseller. So if you're going to be building your own book for trust, for your community, for the paranormal community, that's what I would suggest we work on you building and drafting out this week. It's if you have the time, create a table of contents of your methods that you think people need to know in order to be able to go out into the field and to work with this stuff safely. Give them some experiences, give them some methods that they can use, give them some of those things that they can have firsthand, so that way what you've got going on replicates the same kind of methods that are in both either the codex for a book of explanation and mechanics, or just the grimoire where it's just spells only. Okay. It's like that way you've got application tangible. What is your exercise that you're going to be able to do today? Right. And that way you've got this thing, which is a viable bit of magic. It is a viable bit of your faith, which is fact, because these are the facts of your magic. These are the facts of your ability to manipulate the environment in accordance with your will, if we're going by Crowley's definition of what magic is, and as a spell being an overwhelming force, which then causes the change within the environment, according to the dictionary. Effect. Exactly. And so we go back to Hermetic principle, and then we go back to the basic principles of the building blocks of nature and physics. So if you've got a collection of experiences that for a fact occurred, if you separate out what is the intangible aspect of it between your shadow and the actual correspondences to make those events happen again on command, then from that book of command, you can build a book of power, you can build the book of shadows, you can build the book of dreams, you can build all of those various things, and you can have ongoing pieces of work that you can then go back and publish over the years and create a library of your own that rivals anything that the modern day is producing. Every occultist should be doing this, in my opinion.
I agree.
I believe that everybody, by the time that they're 5 or 6 years into practice, should publish their first book. Because otherwise they're going to forget their information. And if they go back and they publish their first 5 years of work, or they go back and publish the first 10 years of work, like with the Grimoire of Arts, right? You can spend the next 10 years, like I'm doing, and have done, and this is why a 10th anniversary book is coming out, is because it's all of the collected wisdom that I've been able to do over the last 10 years when it comes to that subject matter specifically. So it's a revision of the text, using the information and using a deeper dive into it to refine the problems of it, so that way people like Mike can come to it and they can work with it better, right? And so that the people that are new to my methodologies can go back and create this looped understanding, so that way what I talk about in one text, now I can write another text, and then in 10 years I can go back and do another summary of it, right? So that no text is left alone, and it's all got these secondary applications to it. And so it's like the material that took me 10 years to learn, now I've got it for 10 years of teaching. And I have another thing that I've been doing for the last 10 years since I finished that one that I can publish as well. So there's 2 books now, along with the first 2, right? And now this stuff gets deeper. And now you start building your library. And now you start going into a much, much deeper rotation of your information. So that way what you're able to produce will rival the magic of Solomon. Why? Because Solomon only talked about 72 spirits and a collection of planetary talismans, because that's all he needed to get it, to get the critters to do what he needed them to do, to be able to activate his techniques of faith in the marketplace, or in his temple space, or in whatever it was, because he had a kingdom to run, right? Well, if we're teaching magic, if we're teaching the paranormal, if we're teaching these intangible concepts, then there is method, there is specific formulations that if we do it in just such a right way, you will have experiences. You will be able to see things. You will be able to experience things.
Like I have these places in Israel, they're secret schools, like they're Kabbalah schools, but only special students get to learn all that. This was being taught in Solomon's time in these synagogues to students. So yeah, you're correct.
So I appreciate that, because your background is astounding.
Thank you. I worked hard.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you came into paganism, like that's one of the things we didn't talk about in this particular video. And one of the things I'm most elated about is your quite impressive, and you know, like you've got more of a study and the rooting into the Christian mythos and the Kabbalah and the Torah than I do. And to have you say such a thing for me and my work even though I've come at it in a different kind of way, it carries weight.
Awesome.
You know, it carries a lot of weight. And it's like, would you be willing to explain a little bit about why I say it carries weight? Like, would you go into a little bit more of your history and about before you started teaching the hermeneutics and those kinds of things? What is your background that you can explore, that you're willing to explore a little bit when it comes to the sacred teachings of being able to interact with the spirits or the planetary things and that kind of?
Basically, in a nutshell, like I said, I went from paranormal investigating and hunting entities of evil, and that set me into the Christian. I had to know if the other side was real, God, the angels, which set me into going back to the way. I said, I need to go back to church. So I did. Started going back to church. When we went to Colorado, I was growing medical cannabis. And very quickly, I don't think we were in Christianity very long, maybe a year, about a year or so, maybe a year and a half. And then I got into wanting to know Hebrew. Like I said, I needed to read the Dead Sea Scrolls for myself. So I took the Hebrew class through the School of Hebrew. And I learned Hebrew. And then I just started studying the Hebrew writings, the Torah, the other books of the Bible in the Hebrew writings. Found out they were a lot different than what they are in your English. Just put that out there. But it got me in deeper to understanding the Paleo Hebrew. So I went from learning Hebrew into learning Paleo Hebrew and how it related picture wise to what was going on at that time. So while I was doing all this, living the Jewish life, practicing, watching all the rabbis and practicing Torah and living healthy and whatnot, I got into King Solomon's writings, and I started to research Aleister Crowley and Anton LaVey and Elaine Blavatsky, and I started to get into other mythologies as I was learning Hebrew and Torah class and all this other stuff. And very quickly, it was just what I learned from Torah code class, what I was learning biblically through the writings, the Torah writings, and then seeing videos and stuff of other mythologies. Yeah, it was almost like they were telling me, study this and then study this, and like they were guiding me. So, I went from Christianity into Judaism into, just saying, fuck it. They're doing exactly what I'm doing, but I don't have a religion. Like I don't worship just one God. Like I understand there's one God, and I'm pretty sure I know who he is, but there's other gods and goddesses that have been neglected, forgot about. So I started to study more, and just studying more was like, it led me into astrology and biochemistry and physics. And when I took all that and versed it with King Solomon's writings, it was really easy for me to understand the Kabbalah and the Zohar, the Haftarah. I think it's the Haftarah or something like that. I was able to understand that, and then I met you, and it was like all the stuff that I was struggling to put together numerology wise, and like it was already done. You'd already did it. Like you just basically showed up not on my birthday, but out of any ordinary day, and said, "Here's your birthday cake." Like it was like, yes. So the understanding was a lot clearer, and I think that's why when I went to do my magical practice, it was so magical. Like it was there, it was on point, because of what I went through and learned was all leading me up to where I am today, to be a hermeneutics teacher, to teach other people that the view you've been taught is wrong. There's a bigger view out there. Like you are capable of doing far more than what they give you credit for. Like when they tell you, you are the maker of your dreams, baby, they ain't lying to you. You weld the world to the way you want it and don't settle for less. And I'm being serious when I say that.
Exactly.
Being
Absolutely.
serious when I say that.
Yeah, it's there are techniques of instantaneous manifestation that, you know, we can go through and we can cause. And the five basic principles of spellcraft, if you have these five, actually technically it's only four, but if you understand that the entire thing is the method, right, you can create a spell to do whatever you want. There has to be a narrative. What is it you want to do? All right, what are your ingredients that you're going to use? How do those ingredients fit together with what you want? What is the release mechanism to get all of those things to release the way that you want? And then fifth would be, what is your recapitulation? What is the, you've done all of these things. Now, what are you actually going to go out and set to do? Right. It's like you can do the love spell, or you can do the job spell, or you can do the protective spell.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever it is. But what is the physical component that you're going to incorporate so that there is a through line from intangibles into action?
Right.
You know, and so this is when it comes to like the business coaching that I do for business owners, right? There has to be a flow line. There has to be an everything you do connects to a tangible action. It gets a result for a customer. Because if you can't get a result for a customer, then you're not in business, right? And, you know, I was an adult retailer for years. So if people weren't happy, their orgasms suffered, quite literally. Like, it's all about getting them off at the end of the day. Like, that's their stress relief. And they come to me for like information about that. They come to me for the toys about that. So I had to know the toys, I had to know the lubes, I had to know what their combinations was. But the thing is, it wasn't about the product or their experience. What got them over themselves in that moment, it was the stories that other people tell about the product and service that they were looking for. And so it's collecting these stories. It's
the hype behind it.
Exactly. And that's what divinity is. And it expresses itself in all forms of business, in all forms of interaction between people. What is the thing that is behind that thing we're actually doing, right? In this case, we're talking about spirituality and magic and the divine, quite literally, as it expresses itself through trust of the divine as it manifests in its myriad forms, be it the structure or be it the experience, right? And this is why it's important to have two separate books, one that gives you the experience, one that gives you the structure.
Right.
That way, between the two of them, you have gnosis, you have knowledge, but it's no longer unverifiable gnosis. Now it becomes part of the community gnosis. Now it becomes verifiable under specific conditions. It becomes a scientific method.
Exactly. It becomes science.
It does. When faith becomes science, right? And so this is why mentorship in the occult is so important. This is why working with people that are actually doing it, you know, you can talk a big game by being a keyboard warrior and being like, oh, I study all the different books of magic. But until you've actually got demonstrable proofs.
Right.
That's
why I put videos out. That's why I try to show the public, you know, these things exist. If you just, you know, I put Spread out there because it's Skulls Paranormal Research and Documentation. It's a documentation to prove to you guys that, look, they exist. They're not out to get you. They're just equally bored and want to talk to somebody. How do they talk? They move things. They make noise. You know what I mean? Yes, that scares you because you can't see it. You don't understand it. It's very scary to converse with something you don't understand. But at the same time, they're not trying to scare you. They're just trying to contact with you. Because of who we are and what we've been taught in Hollywood and everything, our first thing is to fear rises and we want to get the fuck out of there, you know? No, that's not, it's a wrong thing to do, man. That's, you know, they want to talk, converse with them, sit down, have a conversation, light a candle, you know, get your pendulum and witchboard out and, you know, EVP recorder and EMF detector and IR camera and start recording things. And, you know, there's tools out there today that you can use to show the public that, you know, they exist. People all the time showing shadow figures run across the wall or an orb that shoots out of nowhere or chairs being moved by an unseeable force. A lot of these aren't gimmick tricks and you know, string pulls. A lot of these things, especially in your Eastern countries, happen. They happen. Why? Because there's a force out there that us humans weren't really told the truth about. Like, we were told, yeah, it's out there. Right, exactly. So when we do experience this force, whether it be an alien abduction or, just an entity you see through the woods, again, entities can take all kinds of forms. Like I told you, I think my cat's Basset the God herself. Like, you know, she's very temperamental and wants things when she wants them. And if not, you get an attitude. Like she, and I don't mean just an attitude. Like she'll get on the desk and stare at you with this look like, look, I was worshipped at one time. Get your human ass moving. Like,
Yeah.
they can come to you in all kinds of ways, whether it be just, some kind of gut feeling or you hear something or, we need to get ourselves more in tune with how to contact and deal with the other side. That way people aren't scared when paranormal stuff happens to them. They don't freak out and run out of the building and lock it and hide in their car because, oh my God, they heard somebody knock on the freezer door. You know what I mean? Like, no,
Especially if
go
they
and
ask
protect
for
it.
it.
Right. Well, I mean, I watched this one video today where this guy there was a big storm in like Arkansas or something, and he had to go into work, but there was no lights, so he had to sit there and just make sure nobody robbed the store or whatnot. Halfway through, like almost 2 o'clock in the morning, he starts hearing banging on the freezer. Yeah, he shows the video and it scares him, and he's like, I'm out of here," and he runs out and locks the door and sits in his car until the end of the shift. Like, now if that had been me, nah, I'd have got my EMF detector, my EVP recorder. I'd have took a chair and I'd have went to the freezer and I'd have sat the chair down, EMF detector, the EVP recorder, and I've been like, look, we having a conversation. Knock on that door again. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fear, and that's why Hollywood. That's why you got Hollywood, to fear. You know what I mean? To pump. That's what your televisions are for, to pump fear into you subliminally, so that you don't get comfortable with this.
And that's the thing is like your body is responding to the paranormal or a spiritual encounter, and you're going to have an adrenaline reaction, because what is
Yes.
that doing? It's raising your brain chemistry so that you can match the same kind of vibrational frequencies of the things that you're experiencing, so that you get a more one-to-one experience with it. It becomes more tangible with your body being able to elevate your vibration. Everybody's all talking about raise your vibration, raise your vibration. Well, why do you need to raise your vibration? So when you're dealing with spiritual shit, you don't break.
Yes. Yes.
This is why magicians practice. This is why there are schools of practice. This is why for the Academy of Sorcery, there needs to be a physical location where people come to practice. They come to study and learn. I'm not going to say that you're going to be able to be there for like 2-3 years. Like maybe you invest in it enough, invest in your own education enough, build out the infrastructure. We'll get it to that point. Right. But the thing is you got to practice your shit every day. It's not just about, you wake up and you read a book and then 15 days later, you're like picking up the book and finishing reading it off.
No,
You got to do magic every day, because it's these energy flows. They're constantly moving through you. And so being able to have demonstrable proofs, to have experiences that occur around you, to be able to have different applications of all these myriads of different things. Like there's the psychic, there's the energetic, there's the feng shui principles, there's the astrological principles, there's the planetary behaviors, there's the environmental spirit behaviors between you and the animal life. Like all of these different things, they matter, right? And when you're new to magic, when you're new to these concepts of mentorship or being mentored or finding what you can trust, if you have verifiable experiences firsthand from not just yourself, but from others that are included in your methodologies, then it becomes more tangible, then it becomes more real.
Right. So basically what you're saying, is magic it's not like a religion or like a thing that you just practice. It becomes a lifestyle, kind of like me, and I got off all pharmaceuticals. I took up herbalism. Like I live on herbs. How do I deal with my pains and my ailments? I use herbs. I use no pharmaceuticals. Now this is a daily lifestyle of living, a trial and error. Like, you know what I mean? Because I was raised and programmed on you need pharmaceuticals, you know, I'm now relearning. I'm learning that no, Mother Earth takes care of me. I have an immune system. Like these all go in syncretism. You know what I mean? Like now it's my job, because I've been lied to all these years, to find out what works. So now it's trial and error. And your magic is just like that. It's an everyday thing that you are going to practice. You're going to have trials and you're going to have errors. You're going to be great and you're going to mess up. It's just the way it goes. It's on how you deal with it. When things go great, yeah, hell yeah, party. Let's go get the beer. When things mess up, stay positive. Just say, okay, you know, they're not allowed the negativity to come in, because then that's where some of your problems are going to start. So you just stay positive and you understand that, look, it's a mess up, it's a trial, and it's an error. Errors are going to, if you're not making errors in your practice, you're doing something wrong. Stop now.
Yeah. Like if you don't know how many times I've had to redraw the same image because I used the wrong ink, or because like, oh, I put this wrong thing together in the draw. This is why you always buy a little bit extra when you're making spell components. Like when you're making your shopping list, buy extra. Why?
Right.
Because you're going to fuck it up a couple of times the first time.
Right.
You know, it might be the ratios are off, or maybe you want to try it in a different way and you need the same ingredients, because if it comes from the same plant, it's the same spirit, and that same incorporation allows for same experiences, right? The more same experiences that you can have repeatedly over and over and over again, all right, this method works, right?
Right. Yep.
And that's exactly the thing, is like, I've done work for clients. Like I've been paid quite a lot of money to do ritual work for clients. And if it doesn't manifest, they get mad.
Oh yeah, rightfully so.
Right. You
But
know,
they gotta,
it's just,
again, they have to understand too, that it's trial and error.
Mhm. And it's like, there was this one lady, she's probably my worst client ever, but I'm going to use my failure with her as my best failure. Right. It was today being Valentine's Day. So this was a love spell that she wanted, right? She wanted me to clear the way so that her husband at the time would no longer play a part of her life or her boyfriend's life, because her family wouldn't allow her to divorce and marry again.
Right.
Her husband was aware that she was stepping out on him. Her husband was actively aware that he wasn't going to let her go.
Right.
And so she comes to me. All right, I created a spell of separation, created a divisionary spell. For 3 months, he was out of the region of their country, because this was over in India, right? And for 3 months, she got to basically have her live-in boyfriend, right? But due to the circumstances of either her behavior or the way that she was doing it, she wanted him dead. And it's like, you don't go from separation of this individual,
Dead,
leaving it in charge with the spirits to give you what you need, not what you want, right? Like
right.
That spell did not kill her husband. It wouldn't. There is nothing that I could do that would put him in the ground and her with her cheating ass with her boyfriend. Nothing. Nothing in creation. Nothing in the pandemonium that would be allowed into creation because of the spirits that walked with him, because of the way that the spell was worked. So the fact that her husband didn't die so she could get her side piece to marry, that is my best failure.
Well, again, and people don't understand the etymology of words, but it's separation. It's not a death spell. It's a separation spell. What do you do when you separate something? It comes apart. Doesn't mean that one's going to die. It just means that it's separate.
Right.
You know?
Right. And then so for like 6 months, you know, they're hating on the Facebook page for the Academy, saying, oh, I'm a fraud, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, no, you got to realize this lady went from, I want to be with my boyfriend, to, I want you to murder my husband in 6 months flat.
Right.
Like, no, murderous. We're not going to use magic to do this. It's not justified. It is not justified. And that's the thing, is when there is magic that is not justified, and this is when I started teaching.
There's consequences.
Exactly. You know, and I'm not about to deal with that. That's
a force you don't want to do it.
I work with natural law. Like if it violates natural law, I can't touch it. Or I can correct it, but I can't cause imbalances in natural law. That is not anything that's part of my practice. Because of the patrons I work with.
Themis has got a natural law.
She is the titan of natural law.
Okay.
She is. There's Gaia, who is her sister. Right? Oranos, the sky god.
Yeah, gotcha. I know who they are.
Yeah, that. Like original proto-creation. Like these things are so massive. When it goes back to talking about the singular collective, these are the principal feminine material, like the thing that governs the behavior and the relationships of the collectives. So why are bees like bees behaving, or why are bears like bears behaving? That would be natural law that keeps them in check.
Mhm.
Right? Like you want to have the birds and the bees, you want to have them do their own thing, right? You want to have men behaving like they do, women behaving like they do, like everything is part of the natural order, right?
Oh, harmony.
Exactly. You try to fuck with that, she gets pissed off.
Oh, I bet.
Like, and I say she is because that's what it represents as far as in my collective, in my experiences. Like I have heard its voice, it's feminine. It said, you belong to me, in the
Who's
most
the god of
visceral,
healing?
kind of bone chilling whisper behind your ear you could ever hear in your life. Like I'm not separate from these energies. And so if you see things like spells out there to cause death and destruction and chaos and pain or whatever it is, generally speaking, those only work if the individual on the receiving end of that is more fucked up and twisted than the spell that caused their death in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like nature saying, nope, no more of your bullshit.
Right.
Outside of that, when you light your candle, when you make your petition to spirit, if that shit ain't justified, if that shit is not going to work in the way that it's supposed to work according to your divination, or the way that
Karma.
it's not something like, those are failures that you should be happy for. Like your work will fail. It did not kill that guy. Like I'm glad it didn't, because I didn't want it to. Like that's not where, like
that's not where your intention was.
Right. My intention was to cause a separation. She wanted a death. I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
She paid for something expecting something else.
Yeah. And I tried to explain to her, it's like, it will cause separation. I will do my best to petition all the spirits that walk around you. I created an effigy, you know, it's like, this is a tangible thing. It's anchored in the same way as the spirits of the brass vessel. So the same spell that I used to create the spell of the brass vessel for my other client that you actually got a chance to speak with about that spirit, she had the same kind of thing, but she didn't like the way that it came out. So she refused the manifestations. So when it comes to failure in this, yes, there are acceptable failures. There are things that I am glad that I fail at, you know, but you have to be willing to make the attempt when it comes to your magic. You have to trust that the methodology is sound and that you can do the same thing over and over and over again, right? You can, and it's going to cause different results. Same thing, different results, right? Because it's how you structure it. So technically, it's not the same spell, even though it's the same method. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So repeatable outcome, interacting with spirits, creating a spirit totem, creating an anchorage for a spirit to work with. Same mechanism. It's got the ritual circle. It's got the candles. It's got the herbs. It's got everything, right? But those herbs are made in a specific way. Those candles are cut in a specific way. The herbs are aligned in a specific way. The crystals, the gate, all of that shit, right? Rudimentary mechanisms, like it's a jar of dirt. It's a puppet, right? Rudimentary tools. But the more you understand the flow lines through these things, the more tangible your manifestation becomes, like with what you experienced with the very simple working of a binding spell using tarot cards.
Right.
So
who is the god of healing?
Which one? Which culture?
Or should, in the Egyptian?
I want to say it's Thoth, because he's god of medicine.
It's not Asclepius. That's Greek.
That's Greek. Let's to the Googler. I want to say it's Thoth. The three gods of the
Sekhmet. It's Sekhmet.
There are three. Sekhmet is the one of them. Thoth is the second, and there are Isis is the third.
So Sekhmet, Thoth, and Isis.
Yeah, and I've had dealings with all three of those interesting entities. But
so
yeah,
the one I would work closely with would be Thoth.
Yeah.
All right.
And I've got a mummification spell that's just cherry. What you can do with it is you can bond multiple spells so it becomes one singular.
Oh, okay.
So like you can prep like 7 or 8 different kinds of spells, but you mummify them together and it becomes one singular spell, like multiple points of compression that do different things that become one single body, like a mummy would. So you can basically make your own spells into mummies. It's really fun.
Badass. That's badass.
Yeah. I'll send you the list of herbs.
Cool.
But yeah, man. So, I mean, is there anything that you would say when it comes to building trust that we need to work on more for our community, for the people that are coming into this method? Because today we've demonstrated not only methods that they can use in their own lives, not only methods that we're using in our lives, but what we've worked with together. Like, what else would you say could help with that trust conversation?
I would give them like a test piece, just something quick and simple to do that they could get the experience from. That would be a good trust builder. You know what I mean? Like just something quick and simple, whether it's a healing spell or protective spell, some kind of, you know what I mean, on a pendulum or, you know, whatever. Something quick and simple that they could see results from for themselves. You know what I mean? That would be a good trust starter.
Right.
It wouldn't be nothing that too difficult. It wouldn't be nothing that would fuck with them and hurt them. You know what I mean? It would be a protection or a healing. It would help them.
So in that case, I would say call for inspiration.
There you go. There you go.
Spell, white candle. The name of one of the muses. Okay. And so I'm going to grab the handy codex and we're going to go in here and we're going to find where I put that fucking list, because that was one of the first spells I ever did when I was back in high school, back when I was about 13, 14, is I wanted to be able to write my own. And so you write the name of the muse on a piece of paper, and then you burn it in a candle's flame and say, ladies who inspire both work both noble and dire, I seek the one whose name is consumed by fire. Right? Now, the mechanics of that particular spell are based upon the spell of curses from the Key of Solomon, where you burn the sigil of the demon or spirit in order to force its compliance, because you would be forcing its compliance by causing it pain using the holy names of God in order to make it suffer. Well, in this case, we're calling on the muse's aid. We're not calling them to suffer. So it's just a way to transmit intent between one plane and another. What is whole here is not whole there. So what is consumed in fire here is whole in the other world.
Right.
So there is Calliope. She is for epic or heroic poetry. Her symbol is a writing tablet. Cleo, her purpose is history. Her symbols are scrolls or books. Erato is love and erotic poetry. So if you're going to write porn, use her. Lyre or crown of roses. Euterpe, Euterpe, is music or lyrical poetry. Her symbol is the flute. Melpomene is tragedy. Tragic mask is her symbol. Polymenia is hymns, sacred songs, rhetoric, and oratory. Her symbol is a pensive expression. Terpsichore, choral song and dance. Dancing and carrying a lyre is her symbol. Thalia is comedy and bucolic poetry. Hers is the comedy mask. Urania is astronomy and a staff pointed with a celestial globe. So if you didn't figure it out, Polymenia is the one who I used, right? Hymns and sacred songs, right? It's the Orphic hymns. So that's the muse that I used to inspire an 800-page book in 3 days. Like, I use that spell regularly. Whenever you get writer's block or you want to work on a project and you don't know what the fuck you need to do, fucking call on one of the muses, man. They're the most benevolent spirits of interaction between this world and the other world that I have ever met or ever had the pleasure of getting inspired by, because they don't demand a blood sacrifice. They don't demand shit. All they demand is that you put your effort, your soul into the thing that you were inspired to do. Right. That's their payment.
Can't beat that, man. How do you pay? Intent.
Action. You do the thing you're inspired to do. I mean, that's the easiest way I built trust with that spell. Like, I wouldn't use it for 10, 20 years now. Like, that's been one, like I said, that's been one of my most favorite spells since high school. So, like, there is an easy evocation spell. Why is it an evocation, not an invocation? Because you're calling it into the space around you to be inspired by it in the same way you would invite wisdom from a spirit or a daemon force. Exactly like Solomon's magic. But this doesn't require anything more than a candle and knowing whose name goes on that fire. And you're not conjuring something evil, and you're not cursing it to hell by the holy names of God. You're inviting it for help. You know, you need inspiration. It wants to do its thing. You doing its thing, your thing through with it as its guide. Like, it gets to manifest in this world through you.
All right.
How cool is that? So with that, my friends, I'm going to say thank you very much, Mike, for running over this today. And I look forward to tomorrow when we get to carry on with the next part of our conversation. So be safe, my friend. And thank you.
Yep.